I'm Professor Noctis. I teach religion and Final Fantasy at University of Alabama, and we have a good time here on stream. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the ProfNoctis Show. And it has been a while, but we had to come back because today's a really big day. Because today we are talking about...
Show them what you got.
Final Fantasy Tactics.
You're going to have to hold still. Oh, wow.
Yeah, let's just check out this amazing shirt.
Yeah, it's fashion show
and lunch. Yeah, and I'm also going to get rid of this hoodie because it is about 1,000 degrees here in Alabama. So anyway, we got to let Delita breathe here. But yeah, so excited because today we're going to be talking about our review of Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles, which is the remakester of Final Fantasy Tactics from back in the day. So
I love this game. I was introduced to it on the PlayStation Portal at my friend's house over the summer, and that was a fun experience. I loved the gameplay. It was different than the other Final Fantasy games that we would play together. You know, a lot of my journey is sitting on the couch on the edge of the bed, watching other friends play Final Fantasy and talking about the story and the puzzles and naming the characters after each other. So this is a fun one for me, but it also has been a minute after our summer break. So welcome back. How's the summer been? And now that you've cooled off a little bit, because you hopped on the call and I said, is it cold over there in Alabama, or what are we doing here?
I wanted to do like a Hulk Hogan sort of thing of ripping my shirt, but I like my clothes too much for that. So I almost did a Macho Man
Randy Savage impression and realized quickly that wasn't Hulk Hogan. So
that would have been really nice, but same era, I guess. But yeah, it has been a minute. It feels good to be kind of back in the swing of things, kicking off fall stuff. My summer was great, dude. It was ups and downs, of course, with travel and family stuff and all kinds of things. But I am glad to be back into a rhythm and routine. How about you? How was your summer?
I'm feeling creatively refreshed and have very much enjoyed us getting back in the swing of things. It's good to take breaks, people. It's very, very important to take breaks. It shakes a lot of the things loose that you can do. And we're excited to shake some of those things loose and get back to some regular content. So we're so excited that you're here. I think just a reminder about how we do reviews and Prof recommends is typically what we'll call it. We don't typically do like a score for a game. We're not going to talk about is it good or bad. We believe that every game has an audience, and our job is to understand the game and understand the audiences. So dainty with your little cup.
Can we look at this? I'm having to be careful because it's got a chocobo in it.
I love
says
it.
Chocobo, right?
Oh.
Now it's completely not utilitarian, right? Because like it just like covers it. But like, why do I need to cover my coffee? Like,
well,
I don't know.
Probably for steeping tea.
I'm not a tea drinker. I'm an American.
Steep your coffee. It's fine.
Coffee. I have a Keurig and a Nespresso. Okay, so like, but anyway, the chocobo is just freaking cute until I send him off to battle in tactics, and then he gets mauled. But
well, you don't drink tea, but you're steeped in technology, and this is this is a game that we're going to be looking at and trying to understand the themes, the audience, and try and connect that because we believe that every game has an audience. Speaking of technology, when we talk about a remake, remaster, a remakester, that's what you called it. When we talk about a remakester, this is an exciting one to get to revisit because the gameplay mechanics being more turn-based and kind of slower and the story means that the visual and mechanical updates are going to change some things, but it should be pretty simple for them to stay true to what makes the game fun. I have a lot of questions about your history with the game, kind of how excited you are for this one, and then I'd love to hear what it feels like to actually play it reimagined in the year 2025.
Yeah, for sure. So huge shout out and great thank you to Square Enix for providing a review copy of this game. I've been playing it here for about a week or so, and I am eager to get into my impressions. What I can say is that I am a huge Final Fantasy Tactics fan. This game has been a long time coming, ever since when was the NVIDIA leak? It was like a few years ago when like all of these games, well, Final Fantasy Tactics Remake was on that NVIDIA leak as well as Final Fantasy IX. Now, we haven't heard anything about Final Fantasy IX. Possibly canceled. Who knows? But people have been kind of anticipating an announcement about this particular remake, and it was revealed earlier this year with a date, which is really, really cool. So it's here at last, and we can talk about it.
Well, let's bring everybody up to speed. So we have some folks who have played the original game and adore it, and so we'll do a little bit of a story refresher and then talk about some of the visuals and what it means. But what world are we in? What is the nature of this game before we get into the presentation and the performance? Because for people who have never played the game but maybe love Final Fantasy, I know that this takes place about 400 years after Final Fantasy 12, right? So it's in that Final Fantasy 12 universe. We won't do any spoilers or anything. You don't have to worry about that. But before we talk about how the updates and the gameplay contribute to everything, just quickly, just very quickly, what are we doing in this game? Who are we?
So let me give a caveat there. This game came out in 1997 originally, or excuse me, 1998, kind of alongside that Final Fantasy VII PlayStation 1 era. So it was long before Final Fantasy 12. 12 was created with a prequel in mind. So it's the same world, but you really don't need to know anything about Final Fantasy 12 to enjoy this game. This game takes place in a place called Ivalice. In fact, that's kind of the subtitle of this, the Ivalice Chronicles, Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles, which makes me wonder if they're trying to reboot Final Fantasy Tactics kind of like as its own franchise with like...
Wouldn't hate it.
I would love it, especially after this one. So, but it's in a place called Ivalice. This is high fantasy, medieval Final Fantasy at its best. Okay, but the thing that's different is that from the mainline Final Fantasy games is that this is a tactical RPG. If you're familiar with like Tactics Ogre or the Fire Emblem series, this is Square Enix's take on that. And it's very grid-based, it's turn-based, and you really have to think through a lot of strategizing. It's like you're a commander of a small platoon or squadron, and you're sending them out into battle every time. It is filled with a narrative. We'll get into a little bit of the narrative, no spoilers in this review, but it is kind of a story of perseverance and hope, of deception, betrayal. It is Game of Thronesy before Final Fantasy 16 really made it popular for this franchise.
Yeah.
This game dances around mature themes and storylines, and I think that's why it had such a great following back in '98.
Okay, well, as a remakester, as it comes back, that sounds like a world that a lot of us want to live in. That's characters that we want to experience.
I don't know if you want to live in this world. There's a lot of blood.
digitally. Well, that's the whole thing. It's not real, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to the original and then some of the updates that they've made, what is it about the presentation and how the game performs and feels that you think, what are some things that people should be excited about or take note of?
The first thing that you're going to see when you see this game is the beautiful graphic overhaul. It reminds me of what I remember it looking like back in the day on my CRT. And I think that that's one of the best compliments that you can give to a lot of remasters and remakes.
Yeah, for
sure. Is that does it capture the essence of it? And just from the visual fidelity and stuff, it captures the heart of those sprites. I'm so glad that they didn't just completely come up with a new art style for this. It captures that, but modernizes it, smooths out some of the rough edges. That's the first thing you're going to notice. They've also added voice acting.
I had questions about that. How does that change your experience here to not be reading things in your own kind of character voice, but get to kind of listen to it and engage with it in that performance?
This game is so text heavy. And when I was playing it as an 8th grader, I could not get through it because I had actual required reading for classes and stuff, and I tried to be a good student. I know that's a shock to everybody, but like I was trying to keep up on all of my reading, and this game was like reading added books. In fact, you can collect books in this game that you will read, and they feel as long as normal books.
Yeah, especially when you're just scrolling on a CRT.
When you're just scrolling, and so you are reading dialogue text, you're reading scrolling text, book text, item text, all this kind of stuff. And it is like, okay, well, this is a digital book. This remake has some of the best voice acting I've heard in a game. I like it, it is that level of quality, Final Fantasy mainline quality. They've even got Ben Starr playing a role. They brought in Christian, Cody Christian and Brianna White for cameos.
The whole crew's back together.
So the whole crew's back together, right? And so, like, this is just a really well done sort of thing through and through. What it adds, though, is that I am understanding the drama, the characterization so much better now than I was. When you're reading, especially as an 8th grader, when you just have all of this text, pages and pages of text, it all kind of funnels through your own kind of voice and it runs together. So like which character said that, all that kind of stuff. This adds so much because you're hearing the desperation in their voices, the conflict, the suspicion that may have been, this is a very nuanced sort of script. And so sometimes characters will say things that have a double entendre or a nuance to them that could be missed if you're just kind of clicking through and scanning through some of the dialogue. The other thing that I'll add is that every character in the game has its own portrait, which we did back in 1998, but they're slightly animated. It's so interesting. Like the mouths are moving, the eyes are moving, but it gives you a little bit more immersion that really works for me, man. Like I didn't think it would be that big of a deal when I was reading like some of the details about what this remake does. I was like, oh, that's neat. Like a little portrait, just speaking. Honestly, it really does, especially packed in with the voice acting. So really,
it
well
sounds
done.
like the voice acting really helps you savor the story rather than feel like it just blends in with technical tips and dialogue. And Final Fantasy always has challenges with tooltips. They like to explain things through text, so anything that they can do to take the time to break that up is valuable.
Yeah.
When it comes to go ahead.
Let me say this: there is still text, and so you're going to get some tutorial stuff. But the narrator at the beginning of the game, all of the characters, and then even battle animations. You're going to hear like the ha, yeah, or ah, like
Ben Starr's just going
sort of thing. I would love to be in the recording room to hear.
Oh yeah.
Like, hey, I need you to have a more guttural scream as you like pass on. It's like ah, like some of them are really bad. So
giving the acting notes, that would be great. So when it comes to savoring it, the story with like rich characters that are voice acted well, let's talk about the mood and the environment that some of the music and sound effects, besides the set. So what is the music? What is kind of the tone, and how does it make you feel present in the game with the characters that you're now maybe differently engaged with?
The music is melodic, but not overbearing. It's never distracting because this is a tactical RPG. The music needs to complement and supplement the moment, never overtake the moment. Because if you're like lingering in the music, then you're not able to really strategize in the same way. So I kind of like the more subdued tone. Now, there are moments, especially during story sequences, where the music swells a little bit more, but it again, never really gets overbearing. I wouldn't say that it reaches the heights of the Final Fantasy franchise, because that series has incredible music, but there are a few standouts that are just like, wow, that really hit. And especially with some of the added cutscenes that they now have, beautiful hand-drawn cutscenes, the music really, really amps up in those things. And there's a couple of boss battles that I'm just like, man, that music is a freaking banger. Like, can we get that in Distant Worlds, please?
I love it. Well, I want to be able to talk a little bit about things like those boss battles and how, before we get to the story, I'd love to know how we experience it. We've talked about how there's a little bit of reading, but then there's the voice acting that's going to kind of guide us and pull us into some of the narration. But when it comes to the way that we're going to kind of do the battles, the way that we explore the world, the way that we move around and get to uncover the story, let's talk about those mechanics so that we have that in mind when we talk about this rich story, because this is one of my favorite stories in a Final Fantasy. I love the topic that it covers, and I know we're both kind of chomping at the bit to get there.
Want to.
So from a game mechanics system. We know that a tactics game means that there's a grid that's laid out and you move your different characters around. You can think of it like a chessboard or like checkers. And so things take time. And so you're able to kind of calculate your moves and plan your attacks and different special abilities and things like that. So with that being kind of the basis for a tactics game, and this being one of the earlier tactics games that really kind of set a lot of people's love for the genre, that spawned a lot of other games that people have really enjoyed. Tell us a little bit about what your experience is as a player. What are you doing with the controller in your hand? What are you thinking about when you're experiencing these games through the mechanics that they've engaged with?
This is a story that is told through, I would say, like small little nodes. Think about Mario World's world map, back in the SNES days. You're not traveling the world like you would an ordinary kind of Final Fantasy. You don't have that kind of control. Instead, you are looking at a map. Your icon, Ramza, is the primary protagonist, and you're going to direct him to different villages and places, and then there are encounters or cutscenes or battles or whatever it is on those nodes.
Okay, so we have an overworld.
There's an overworld, but it is incredibly specific. You can't go anywhere. It is like
guided.
I think the best way of saying it is, especially for this particular era, it is a world map akin to Mario World. And so,
so you know the zone you're going to, you kind of get the feeling of traveling there, but you just click up, it goes to the next path, and then you choose to engage and jump into the world, or does it pull you into encounters?
So it varies. Sometimes when you go to one of these kind of way stations or waypoints, a story sequence will play out. Sometimes it's a story sequence leading into a battle. Sometimes it's just a battle. And sometimes you're just going to be passing from one waypoint to the next, and you'll have a random encounter there that you can flee from or you can engage in. Pro tip, fight as many of those as possible because grinding is good, and I'll get to the grinding in just a minute. The battles themselves, though, are the heart of this game. The story gives the context, really gets you interested in things, but the battle system is incredibly addictive, and the gameplay loop is compelling.
Perfect.
So you're looking at, when you enter into a battle, it's going to be kind of like a 15 by 15 square grid. And there are places of elevation, and there's kind of straight paths, blocks. There's a castle, like maybe some castles, walls, obstacles that you'll have to traverse and maneuver. On one side, typically, is going to be your squadron of about 5 characters and maybe some guest characters that you won't control but are going to accompany you. And then on the other side will be your enemies. Your goal may change from time to time, but typically you're going to decimate your opponent. And so it's turn-based style, usually depending on your level of speed stats. That determines your turn order typically. And so you'll kind of go through basic turn order. On every character's turn that you're in control of, you'll be able to move your character and perform some basic actions. Now, that sounds pretty simple, but there is one of the most robust job systems in Final Fantasy in this game. In fact, it is, and I can say this, it is as true today as in 1998, it is my favorite job system in all of Final Fantasy.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about what a job system is for those who may not know. So typically in games, you have a class, which is kind of the thing that your character does, whether they're a magic user or a fighter or a rogue, or they do all these different things. And so Final Fantasy will oftentimes introduce a job system where rather than just having a menu where you assign things, people learn their skills based on their craft and their trade. So the jobs are similar to like classes or different things in other games. Talk to us about what makes this one so special outside of the normal job system.
So what I love about this is that it is simple, and yet it's pretty darn nuanced and complex. You can customize your characters, all of them, the way that you want to. And so I liken it, there are two kind of job progression paths, and there's a little bit of crossover. There's what I would call the fighting class, and then there's what I would call the magic class.
Okay.
You begin the fighting class with a squire, you begin the magic class with a chemist.
Okay.
You level them a couple of levels, and then it's going to open up new possibilities. So for the squire class, you can go from that into a knight, into a monk, or you can choose to go more archer, maybe go into something like a a ninja, that sort of thing. So very physical damage. But again, it's kind of hard to unlock some of these. You've got to level multiple jobs in order to become like a ninja. So for example, with like the chemist path, you have to not master, but level up a little bit your chemist in order to open up a white mage or a black mage, curative magic typically, or destructive magic. And then leveling them up, you'll have a couple of different paths. What's cool about this is you are never locked in. Anytime you go into a menu screen, you can swap your job classes, start learning some black magic. I've got a great, what I would call a red mage. They've got some white magic, some black magic. They're my kind of everyman sort of
elemental
fighter.
caster.
You know, they're an omnicaster. I love it. I add in some like time magic and we're golden.
Perfect.
But then, like, what's so cool is that they don't tell you all the jobs that you can have. It's just like you discover them along the way. So literally, like a couple days ago, I opened up the bard class. The bard is not one of the nodes on your job screen.
Oh,
I just kind of discovered it. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I always have a bard in the back who's like, I don't know, singing his songs of hope and despair over the battlefield.
Right.
And just buffing the entire battlefield while the rest of them are fighting and, you know, saving their lives or whatever. So, I mean, that was something that I wasn't remembering from my 1998 playthroughs. And real talk, I didn't finish the game in 1998. So this is my first time beating this game and rolling credits, even though I've watched YouTube playthroughs and stuff.
Well, the Nintendo Switch is such a great platform for a
and
game
that's
like
what we
this.
should say. I received this copy for the Nintendo Switch 2, and it's also on Switch 1. It is the perfect Nintendo Switch game because while I'm watching, I'm currently, you know, watching a teen angsty show, just as like I have some guilty pleasures, right? So the summer
You're watching The Summer I Turned Pretty, aren't you?
I'm watching The Summer I Turned Pretty right now.
We just finished it. We just finished it.
Oh, good. Well, I'm finishing season 1 right now, so I just got into it.
There's gonna be a movie.
Listen, that's what my students tell me. Anyway, I'm watching the show and I'm grinding, and like I'm just like there's an auto battle function for different characters, and I'm just like going. I am just destroying. I'm decimating.
I can't
everybody.
wait to play this game.
I did not get to chapter 3 before I had maxed out every character in every job.
Okay, that's my question. Is you love the detail, and a lot of our viewers and folks in the Discord love all the nuance and detail, and so it's just you're naturally able to do it. But for somebody like me, and for people like me who like
Evan.
maybe want to dabble in some of that, but then kind of want that part of it to be somewhat on autopilot when we're not as interested in it, talk me away from being overwhelmed by this robust job system
Evan.
for those different kinds of players.
Dude, here's the thing. I'm the same way as you. I hate job progression gameplay sort of stuff.
Sure you do.
I hate it, okay? Like, I can leave things on the table. I don't have to platinum games that I'm not having fun with at all. But this one, it's like, I just want everybody to be so overpowered. I want a team of ninjas and bards. That's all I want.
You're just making Coachella.
I'm making Coachella, right? Like, so you gotta see it. Like, I've got these 4 ninjas that are on the front lines, and then I've got the singer in the back that's cheering them on to victory. And I'm like, no one can take this merry band of ninjas. Bring it on.
I love it.
It's so fun. But like the
you
progression.
Made the Ninja Turtles.
I did make the Ninja Turtles, and I guess April's the singer. I don't really know, but it is
Casey Jones.
Casey Jones back there with a hockey stick, maybe. It's been so fun to just like grind away, and I'm not even thinking about it because, like, again, with the Switch, I'm able to do this kind of mindless activity, still enjoy it, and level up. I've done all the errands, all the side quests in this game, just because it's so easy to do it.
And you can suspend play easily, pick it back up, and know where you left off. Because I always make sure when I'm playing games like Final Fantasy that I end my play session staring at whatever door or thing I'm supposed to do next. Because I don't know if it's going to be a couple days or a couple weeks when I'm able to get back to it. But it sounds like this one keeps you on rails pretty well while being able to experience a rich story. So it's not like the kind of thing where you're going to lose track of where you were at and all the details and all the things that you had to do and things like that. That's amazing.
You can save the game in between battles, but I mean, even on my Switch, like, you know, I turn it off, and then I come back in right in the middle of the battle. And so that's a luxury of the system, I think.
Okay, well, we've talked a lot about how we're able to experience the story through the mechanics. Any last things you want to talk about as far as the, what do we call it, remakester?
The remakester
about that, because I know that we really want to jump into this story because it's a fun one, it's rich, and it's near and dear to kind of some of your expertise and experience. So catch us up on anything else that we need to know, and then let's talk about this story.
I think the big thing that maybe I haven't mentioned is that you are going to have a combination of what I would call faceless NPCs that are on your team or your squadron, and you can recruit more at every town if you would like to. I kind of have just the standard starters because you can turn them into whatever you want. But then you'll also have named story central characters who will join you, sometimes as guest characters, and sometimes they'll become permanent fixtures, and you can use them in their specializations in your party. So eventually, it's likely that you will replace some of those static party members with some that you feel a particular affinity for. I've got my team of ninjas, but occasionally I'm going to bring in like somebody else that's like, oh, I really like her, or he's a cool dude, and like I could use some of those party-specific skills. With the faceless NPCs, you can rename them, and I think that's good. For the purposes of my content, I named them all after early first 300 church leaders. I did. And so I've got Irenaeus of Lyons. I've got Bardasian or Bardazan. I've got Origin. And they're all like on my front line. Some of them are ninjas. They're ninjas. Some of them are bards. Some of them are healers, because I'm like, well, he was a priest. Let's bring him in. And that's probably a pretty good segue into some of the story themes, because the reason I did that is because this game, more than most other games, or really any other game that I've ever played, dives into themes of church hierarchy, church secrecy. And while it is a fictitious story, it does have some rootedness in conspiracy theories about the early church, the stories of Jesus and Christological understandings and misunderstandings, historicity, historiography, that sort of thing. I mean, it's just really compelling. And so knowing that, I was like, well, I'm naming everybody after my early church leaders.
Well, one of the things that I love
about... you can name them Frank and all of your friends' names,
your
too.
friends,
your
pets, your goldfish, whatever you want.
I'll just look down on you for my pretentious armchair academic mode over here.
Yeah, well, the thing you need to remember, Prof's always watching everybody.
I'm always like Santa.
He's in your Ring doorbell cam, just looking out at you.
Hack into your life.
One of my favorite things about this game and the story is the way that it explores like divergent narratives in history. What do we do when we're way past the historical event and we start to use a word that you like to use, renegotiating our relationship with the past and the narratives of the past and how we got here? One of my favorite examples from recent meme culture, when it comes to understanding authorial intent and divergent narratives, is someone tweeted, in the Flow Rida song, when he's talking about boots with the fur, was he talking about boots and someone who was wearing a fur coat? Or did the boots themselves have fur on them? And how are we supposed to understand what happened in a historical text and the context if we can't even remember something from the mid-2000s when it comes to that? And I was like, that is hilarious and remarkably astute, and I think extremely relevant to kind of where this story likes to go. So how do you take your first bite out of this?
That's a great question. Were you the boots have the fur, or it was boots with something fur on? What was your interpretation?
Originally, in my first impression, When I just digested it, I thought that they were fur-lined boots because Uggs were very, very popular at the time. But I think when you watch the music video, and as I've gotten older, I'm realizing it was probably boots and then some kind of fur ensemble, because that's a lot of emphasis on shoes. Now, there was a lot of emphasis on shoes at the time. Nelly's Air Force Ones, for example, shoes were a very big deal and the focal point of a lot of hip-hop music. However, I think in this case, we were more moving towards like a Macklemore thrift shop talking about the ensemble, and I think that's the direction that things were headed. So I would say I think it was boots with fur coat or accoutrement. If you
I
will.
originally would have said boots with fur on the boots, right? But then I saw an image, I think it was on social media, of Reba McEntire wearing boots and a fur vest, and somebody said, "Oh, she got the boots with the fur," and I was like, and my mind was deconstructed in that moment.
What if that song was just about Reba?
You could do worse. Like Reba's great.
Reba, if you're watching, leave us a note in the comments.
Leave us a note. Let us know. Did you say I'm going to wear the boots with the fur today? Is that what you thought when you looked in the mirror?
Okay, so when it comes to a diverging narrative in a historical event, especially with historical religious text and the narrative there, where do you find is a good place to start in understanding some of the tension that exists in this game and that's explored in the story?
You know, the story is not one that you have to do extra reading on at all. So you just come in and you start to listen to the story unfold. But there are some key questions that I think resonate in today's world that this game addressed back in 1998. It is just a question of who has power and how did they get it. And if history is written by those who have power, how trustworthy is it to understand the whole scope of things? Who's being left out? Who's included and why? Who are the stakeholders in the information that has been disseminated through society? And I think that those are evergreen questions and concepts for all of us to consider. And this game does it so, so well. Because I think that it does it through characters that you grow to care about. And instead of me as a professor or a lecturer standing up and saying, you need to always question authority, all that kind of stuff, you're actually seeing it in real action within families, within communities, towns, and seeing the effects that it has on the nobility, the commoners, and all of that kind of stuff.
Well, clarifying the narrative and how we got here, who has power and how did they get it, is really just one part of the process of like societal learning, understanding, and history and sociology, right? Who has power and how did they get it? But there's another step that I think this game starts to explore, and we follow along with the characters in their journey, which is what do we do about it now? Regardless of where the narrative is, what's the next step in the process? What do we do about it now? And so I'm interested to hear about the journey that the characters are on and how you journey with them as they explore, okay, what was, how do we clarify it? But regardless of what that narrative is, what do we do about it now and how that impacts their relationships and their decision making?
Boy, that's a great question. And characters do tend to wrestle with that sort of thing. It's like, okay, this is the world that we've inherited, but is it the world that we have to have? Can there be a better way of doing it? And you're going to see characters on both nobility, commoners, church-related, non-church-related in the story face some of those harsh realities, and they're all working toward their vision of a better world. When that vision of a better world comes into conflict with one another, that's when really some of the meat of this story comes in. And what I love about this particularly is, again, these are real world sort of things, but it's in that unique Final Fantasy trapping. And so they incorporate some of the icons of Final Fantasy past, like Ifrit and Shiva. You've got chocobos and you've got Moogles. And then you've got this very real world sort of thing. In my research, especially with Final Fantasy 16, this is a great maneuver because it helps you think about real world concepts without being angry at real world concepts. Instead, you can be mad at the fiction and then make references and transfer behaviors into your regular everyday life. That's my favorite kind of story. If it doesn't do that, it becomes preachy. And if it does it the other way, well, it's like, well, this is meaningless. It's just fiction. This perfect balance of like real world and fantasy and assimilation into protagonist action, that's the sweet spot if you're going to tell a good myth or parable.
Well, then talk to me about Ramza, the character that we're going to, spend the most time with in the game. Who are we? What does it look like to be in their world and explore the world kind of through their lens, and really kind of literally walking in their shoes here through their struggles and triumphs, successes, and actual physical battles in the tactical arena?
I'm going to be very careful here not to dive into any spoilers, because this is a game that you really want to experience, especially with the voice acting and the new presentation. What I can say, though, is that Ramza is a young knight who has been sent to Orban Monastery for a specific purpose. And while he is there is a particular character who is kidnapped. And this starts a chain of events that sweeps Ramza into a much larger, broad, cross-country sort of adventure and mystery. The narrative hinges on the relationship between Ramza and his best friend, Delita. And Ramza and Delita are facing the same things, even having grown up together. One more noble, Ramza is of the nobility, Delita is a bit more of a commoner. And so because of that, they're seeing the world both the same and differently. And it's trying to, again, negotiate and renegotiate their friendship in light of perhaps differing alliances, allegiances, values, and even ability and influence. Ramza has more influence than Delita at parts of the game. And so how does that kind of play out? It's a question of what is the noble work, whether you are in the nobility or a commoner, to strike against injustice. I think it's a really fascinating story and question.
So without getting into, specific details, to explore injustice in that way, what is it about the characters and the way they interact and kind of those two different perspectives that really makes this kind of a timeless evergreen story when it comes to those real world analogies that we kind of think of as we explore it? What is it about their interactions and their distinct perspective that you think is so captivating, and why does it have such staying power 20-something years later?
There's a scene early on where Ramza is having a conversation with his brothers. His brothers Dicedarg and Zalbog, which are great names.
Of course.
As everyone knows. But Ramza is having conversations with them, and it's very clear that they are seeing the world through different lenses. All three of them are nobles, but the orientation that they have with the commoners, those of less noble birth or ignoble birth, it's a real conflict. And you see that in Ramza. He has an allegiance and alliance with his family, but also he knows what is right and what is wrong. And so it begins to build just a slight conflict within Ramza's own spirit. Now, here's the thing. I've never been in boardrooms that navigated the needs of the few and the many. I've never really done that on the scale that's talked about in this game, but I have been in conversations, in meetings, and dinner time discussions with people I deeply cared about, where there was a real difference as to what needs to be done. And Ramza's conflict, I felt it in my own life. And watching Ramza go through this made me wonder, okay, well, how do I navigate those conversations in a world that is increasingly polarized more and more? How can I stand both with, quote, family and with the other?
It's a challenging tension to tell in a story, but good characters can experience in ways that we can find authenticity with and take lessons and those kind of philosophies from the story and pull them into our own lives as well.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we finish up other things about the story. We have to kind of dance around it because we really want you to be able to experience it for yourself. But I do want to get to the staying power of this game and why it kind of matters today. So catch us up on anything else that you think would be really relevant from the story, and then let's work towards why it matters today and what makes it stick so much 30 years later. And I think we also probably need to talk a little bit about the approachability, because if you haven't played the game, this is a great place to start. So kind of weave that in as we kind of move into our next section.
Sure. This game addresses inequality in power structures. Now, it doesn't do it in an overtly political way. Like I said, this is not a preachy game, but it is a parable game in a lot of ways. It is, so as you all know, I teach religion through video games at the University of Alabama, and I use Final Fantasy 16 particularly to do this. What I love about what this game does is it goes into history and theology, meaning making, and philosophy through institutions in the world. For example, the church. The church and the clergy are really a big part of this narrative story, just like it would be in medieval Europe, right? Like the church was not just a religious organization, but it was also a power brokering, governing organization as well. And that's very similar to what's happening here. So it's a question of where did their power come from? What is divine right? Who gets to determine what is blessed by God or not, or the Father, as they say in this game? And how do those kind of statements hit the peasant class, the working class, the other nobles? And how does it really play about? I think that what it does is it asks people it invites people to ask questions of those that you might blindly follow, whether that is the church or whether that is governance and stuff. It's not pro-revolution at every second, let me say that. But it really is about, we need to take a deeper, closer look at how we got here.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what makes it really evergreen. I mean, I think that even talking to my students, the things that they will bring to class from social media or from family or home life or something they saw on TikTok or something like that, there's always this question of how much do we trust and how much do we verify with all of this? And what are the processes for that? What conversations do we need to have about this sort of thing? And I mean, I think that's what makes it very evergreen. Of course, in 1998, this was done before we had a global communication mechanism. Right? We did not have on message boards and chat rooms the same access we have to the ends of the earth like we do today, especially in our pockets, right? With our phones and stuff. And so understanding the changing kind of power dynamics of the day today, I don't know. This story hits very differently. It may not be the church in the same way or the government in the same way, but who are the huge stakeholders that we need to have these conversations about?
So if learning and understanding are kind of the key tenets that the characters kind of wrestle with while they're journeying through, and that's really the staying power of the story, just essentially being transported into our modern environment to be able to experience it in a different and in some ways differently rich, not necessarily more rich, but especially for things like voice acting and graphics, you know, there's a richness to that experience. What does this move you to as far to action? Like, what does this make you think about? What is this making you do and reflect on in your own life as you kind of think about who you recommend this game for, the types of players and audiences that you would really recommend somebody explore this as a fit for, especially when it comes to if you're not the player, you know, like a parent or a partner who's looking to get a gift for somebody that, you know, it's like would be a great surprise. I'm sure if they're an avid fan of Final Fantasy Tactics, they've probably been talking to you about it at the dinner table already about how it's coming out and showed you the trailer and you were like, that looks great. But what does that look like, and who is this game for?
There's a few different types of people. If you like tactical RPGs, you can't do much better than this one. And so if you like Fire Emblem, if you like Tactics Ogre, and if you like the battle styles of Baldur's Gate 3, for example, this is going to be a great one. Now, it's not quite as open as Baldur's Gate 3 as far as like the things that you can do or even the mobility across a map, because this is grid-based. But the heart of that turn-based combat is here. So if you've been a Final Fantasy fan and you're like, I really miss the turn-based old days and I'd like more strategy, this is going to be great, especially because you can't get tactical RPGs with the Final Fantasy aesthetic outside of this. So if you like the summons, the Moogles, the chocobos, this is it. And like I said, if you purchase this one, you're sending a message to them saying, we like this, we want more. And so that's what I really am saying to people. $50 as well, so that's really good. It is not a $70+ game. So there's that. So number one, for people that like that style of gameplay. Number two, the second type of gamer or person this is for is somebody that has an interest in history. This is the most historical parallel style Final Fantasy game that I think that we have gotten, because you're going to see some real parallels with the early church, the Catholic Church, for the first 300-400 years of existence. You're going to have questions about the historicity of the church. If you were interested in things like the Da Vinci Code back in the day, this has an element of that, of like what was really going on behind the things, or at least it makes you think that kind of thing, right? So if you like that train of thought, then this is a great game for that as well. If you are just a history kind of person, then it makes you ask the questions of, so for religious studies and for especially Christian studies, how did the Bible come to be? And that's one of the things that I'm going to be talking about during our lecture series coming up about this game. How is the church something that managed itself to be trusted, and how did they have councils to discuss what was in and what was out, and some of the history pieces of that are sometimes misconstrued by conspiracy theories and all this kind of stuff. So it makes you deep dive into, well, what is the truth behind power structures? And so for me, as a religious studies guy, I really leaned into that church angle.
Oh, yeah. Well, and to further that, one of the things that we really like to do is equip the non-player, whether it's a parent, a friend, a partner, somebody who's not going to play this game, but you might be watching over their shoulder, or you just want to talk about things that the people that you care about are interested in. What are some good questions and kind of invitations to engagement that you would say to somebody who is either playing with the person, the player, or maybe is just in relationship with, and it's somebody that we care about? What kinds of questions do you think invite interesting discussion that maybe are a little bit deeper than who's that?
Yeah, this game, let me say this as well. This game is not going to be for every kid. I would say 12, 13 years old is probably the sweet spot for starting them on this. This should not be baby's first Final Fantasy. Number one, the language. You're going to dive into some language that probably isn't kid totally friendly. You're also going to dive into scenes with some violence. It is cartoon violence, but there is blood, and it's just important to know that kind of thing. That said, a preteen, 12, 13, and up, they're going to have the cognitive ability to kind of understand what's happening, who these characters are, and that sort of thing. The questions that I would really ask is, who's your favorite character? If you're talking to a middle schooler particularly, why do you like that character? What do you think about the dynamics that are happening between the rich and the elite, and the poor and the kind of downtrodden? To a degree, having some of those questions in conversations. I think the biggest thing that somebody can do is it's a fun game to watch somebody play through. So parents, partners, friends, have somebody do the controller, and then you can kind of yell at them like, oh man, you should send the fourth ninja out instead of, a fourth bard, whatever it is.
Right.
So it's kind of fun in that respect, but if you're going to get to the themes, there's a lot to talk about here, I think.
No, that's great. So as we kind of work towards closing, what else do you want people to be aware of, and what are some final thoughts as we kind of wrap up? And thanks again to Square Enix for the ability to have these discussions a little early so that we can get this out and time it up with the release so that you can use this as a means to explore this as a good fit for yourself or for others in your play experience.
Here's what I'll say. I was not a fan of Final Fantasy Tactics in 1998. I liked it, but I didn't love it, to the point that I never finished it. I got halfway through the game and was like, man, there's a lot of reading in this. Today, Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles, is the best iteration of this game. It is better than the 1998, the PSP version, certainly the mobile version. Not that there's anything wrong with that. This is just the whole package and the best telling of this really cool, important, and thought-provoking story. The gameplay has been tightened up in ways that make the quality of life experience just a little bit better, from menu optimization all the way to some auto battle settings and that sort of thing. Add in voice acting and the graphical enhancements, and you've really got something special. This game is one that is going to make you think a lot. And it's not because it's forcing you to have this kind of meta sort of existential crisis, but it just invites you into the perspective of Ramza. And what does that mean? And along that same kind of line of thinking, that's part of why for this fall, we are doing a Final Fantasy Tactics lecture series. So once a week, we're going to have about a 90-minute live stream lecture interaction, same way that I would do in my classes, where we're going to play through a little bit of a segment of the game. We're going to watch some cutscenes, and we're going to share some different ideas and thoughts while I talk about everything from church history to some real-world dynamics. We're really, really excited to get that out, and I guess now would be an appropriate time to show you our trailer for it. So let's take a look. They say history is written by the victors. But what if the victors were actually deceivers? And what if memory was forged not by truth, but by power? This fall, join me, ProfNoctis, as we uncover the hidden truth in a world inspired by our own. From secret councils to heretical conspiracies, we're looking at real-world history through the lens of one of the most acclaimed tactical RPGs ever made, now remade. This and more in our Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles lecture series. As a scholar of religion at the University of Alabama, I receive a ton of questions from students about biblical and church history. Questions like, can the Bible be trusted? And what if the church got it wrong? From the process of canonization of scripture to the legitimacy of orthodoxy and the downplaying of forgotten voices, students question the process that shaped Christianity, and for many of them, their own faith. So starting September 30th, using the newly released Final Fantasy Tactics Remake, we'll be tackling these huge issues and more in a 4-week series of 90-minute weekly lecture plays, organized like my actual college classes that combine religion and video games. Each week, we'll play a segment of the game together and explore topics like how was the Bible compiled, what happened at these mysterious church councils, and why were some thoughts accepted while others deemed heretical. This series isn't just a show, though, it's a classroom, and just like in my real courses, I'm giving you homework. In between lectures, you'll be invited to play along on your own, and record notes and questions, both about the game and about church history and the origins of Christian theology. So if you've ever had questions about Christianity and church history, whether you ascribe to it or not, this is a safe and welcoming place to make sense of something that profoundly impacts our world, using this classic game. The lecture series begins Tuesday, September 30th, release day, live at 7:30 p.m. Central on YouTube and Twitch. For all the details, head on over to ProfNoctis.com, and if you haven't yet, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a single session. Consider this your personal invitation to join me each and every week. I can't wait to see you in class. Let's uncover the truth together.
I can't wait.
And there you go. Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles, the lecture series, starting, next week. So if you're getting here on the 24th, what is it today? September 30th is when the lecture series begins. So make sure that you are tuning in for that. It's going to be great. And I think that from the church history standpoint to the history, we're going to have some great, quote, class discussions, because that's kind of what the live streams are like. I'm excited to get into it with you and also hear some of your thoughts and comments. We'll be starting the game together then and really kind of creating some lenses for that. So it's going to be good times.
Yeah, thanks everybody for journeying along with us. We're so excited to be back in the swing of things now that school is back, and we're looking forward to more great discussions and seeing you in the Discord and in the comments as well. So hope that you enjoy this game. Wade, thanks for the time and the great discussion, and I'll let you send us off.
One final thing, at least over the next week, leading up until release day, we are doing a contest, a drawing for a free copy of this game. For more information on that, you can join me over on X/Twitter and follow the guidelines there for all of that kind of stuff. But we just want this game to, I want you to play this game. As your, quote, Professor Noctis, I want you to play this game because I think you're going to have a great time with it, but also it's great for discussions. This fall, we've got a lot of great content coming up. You can look forward to next Monday, a new drop of our ProfNoctis weekly show where we are going to be interviewing. Can I say it? I can say it, right?
Say it.
We're interviewing Gavin Verhey from Magic the Gathering, who was with us for a great conversation. Wasn't that fun, Evan?
Yes, you need to understand, this is the principal game designer and one of the foremost voices and forward-facing folks of Magic the Gathering, who also loves Final Fantasy. So this is the guy that helped make the Final Fantasy set as great as it was. So if you want to understand some of the inner workings behind what's going on at Wizards, whether you like Final Fantasy and that's why you're here, or whether you just enjoy Magic the Gathering, it is absolutely an interview that you want to pay attention to. You get to learn about him and all of the influences and process that goes into making the game, and you get to learn about maybe some exciting new stuff coming up. So check it out.
You get to hear me trying to get Part 3 information out of him.
He tried really hard. He did a really good job, but you'll have to see for yourself.
You'll have to see for yourself. It's going to be really good. So anyway, that's next week. Then we've got our full lecture series with Final Fantasy Tactics. We've got Expedition 33 and a ton of new things.
It's going to be so much fun!
It's going to be great. This is going to be a spectacular fall semester. So thank you again for watching. If you like this stuff, make sure you like and subscribe. Stay tuned for more, and we will see you next week.
Share it with your friends.
Share it with your friends. Until next time, walk tall, my friends.
Bye, everybody.
See you later.